Hi everyone, this is Tom from NoCode Shots, where I interview no-code founders all over the world. And today we are having AB Modi, a no-code developer and AI architect who is building a really cool and advanced project using Bubble. AB, would you please introduce yourself and tell us more about the projects you are working on?
Hi, my name is Amy Modi. I'm a professional mobile developer. I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts. And basically, I've been into an IT world for all my life, I would say. I got into technology very young during the high school time. I've been one of those fortunate guys, never had a chance to work in corporate America, but been into an entrepreneurial journey for over 15 years. Been into many startups, started many small businesses, and everything that I've done, it's revolved around technology. My biggest thing was to put together a technology solution for every business that I've started. And I started with utilizing SaaS applications and try to connect multiple tools that can talk with each other. Never had a success until I took the matters in my own hand to figure out how hard it could be to be a software engineer. Is when I enrolled myself into a software engineering boot camp. And going through that process, I just realized how much I enjoy building applications. But given the experience I had as a software engineer, I just enjoy building applications, but not so much coding. With syntax errors and spending hours sometimes to figure out where the errors are causing. And this is, of course, before ChatGPT ever existed to catch my errors. I just was not happy with the pace it was taking for me to complete a software. And so as a result, I was introduced to Bubble by one of my friend. And it wasn't first at love sight, but when I gave it another try, I was amazed by how fast I was able to bring the project to the life. And with the quality and the speed being there, it just blew my mind away. And with that, I had helped a couple other startup founders in Boston community to see if I could deliver the same level of speed and quality for their project. And without any doubts, I got the results that I was looking for. And then one thing led to another. I was helping more individuals to build their software, not realizing that I was building my own agency. I didn't even know there was a business like agency that ever existed. And then slowly, I just helped over 160 plus individual clients over the past 4 years using Bubble. So that's me in a nutshell. So today I'd like to share a project that really touches my heart. And out of 160 projects that I worked on, this is by far my favorite project. And the reason being, it is a combination of 6 different software built all in one. And I never realized the potential of Bubble until I got into this project. So now I'm going to share my screen to kind of walk you through on that project. There it is. So the app is called Gonzy. It's basically a software for marketing agencies who can efficiently manage their leads and perform a marketing automation. And with this software, let me break it down. There are two sides of it. One is, of course, sales, where you're actually managing lead prospecting. And there is a fulfillment side of the app where once your lead is converted to a client, you're managing their project. So on the sales side of things, you have Rolodex, where you have context information for your prospect clients. There are different standard pipeline, the sales pipeline that if you may be familiar with, where you could also customize this pipelines and then drag and drop deals to different section. And you're also able to generate leads through prospecting. So there is a lead generating tool built into it. For example, if I'm looking for all the barber shops in Boston, I can just type that in, select the city, country, and state. And then what it does, it basically going to generate a list of all the barber shops within Boston. And once the list is ready, I'm then able to pull them up and then be able to push them into our pipelines and go from there. So with that being said, this tool not only helps you prospect and generate leads, but as I was mentioning earlier, you can also go into the fulfillment section and start managing your customer. For an example, this is the project that I started with. If I go into the manage, I can now go and manage that client and their project all in one place. I could also chat with the client where I have this messaging feature called water cooler where I can start the conversation.
Why is the name? Why is the name water cooler?
It's water cooler. They call it is because individuals just want to have a chat or conversation on the side. Like in the traditional office environment, you can have a gossip in a water cooler area.
Okay.
Right? That's why they call it water cooler. And of course, we have message boards, which allows you to post messages for the entire channel. And of course, you can invite other team members. You can also invite clients' team members to it. So the entire project management can be handled here. But my favorite part of this section, fulfillment, is the pipelines. The most favorite part of mine is the marketing automation. The marketing automation allows me to configure different sets of automations from the leads that I'm generating and managing for that specific client. So for an instance, if I here set up a marketing automation for, let's say, email triggers, I can go and add that, and then I can select, there's some forms that I have to create. So going back to the forms, I can build a custom form. This is basically a lead generating form that I can put together. And then let me just go ahead and add a text here that is going to say, fill in this form. And from there, I can also include like an input where it's going to be, let's say I want to collect an email. I can add a helper text saying, enter your email address. So this is just like...
basically, as I see, it's pretty impressive. Basically, HubSpot or even more built on Bubble, right?
Exactly. It is the HubSpot built on Bubble and many more. There's much more of their functionality than HubSpot, you'll see. All right, so that's there. And then let's say if I just enter phone number, All right, so that's good enough to demo. And then if I preview, you can see how the form looks, and I can publish that, which gives me a link to either embed that form onto a website, or I could host that on a simple URL and then just go from there. Hosted link, I can just use that to pull up the form.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just put that in here. There it is. Form has been submitted. And then you can also see all the form data into the forms section of this. Just bear with me 1 second.
Yeah, here's the number of forms submitted. Yep. And you can actually use these forms in the marketing automation section, right?
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Correct. So now I can take this form and then I can go into the edit. As you can see here, the email trigger is here. I can now go and select that form that I just created. I can, of course, select the pipelines if I have customized. And then from here, I can enable the marketing automation. And then from there, I should be able to configure a few other items. And then here I can say when the new leads comes in, send this email, and then SMS and so on. So apart from that, you can also connect your own Twilio account. You could also have a calendar integration. That is another my favorite feature, basically Calendly built on Bubble. You can have, let's say, one-off events I can create, like a calendar link.
And are you able to connect your own calendar, for example, the connection to Google Calendar, right?
Exactly.
Any others or the Google Calendar?
Right now, we only support Google and Microsoft.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got 2 of those. So there it is. So I just created that calendar invite, and then I can see all my events here. I can also set my availabilities and so on. So this product we've been working on for almost 2 years now, and what our team was able to put together is incredible.
Yeah, It's impressive. So you started, how the project was started? Because you said that you are working for the project 2 years from now. So
Mhm.
it started as a simple idea, or the idea was to create the comprehensive app from the beginning?
Yeah, so it's a interesting journey we had. So initially, the client reached out to me because he'd been working with another agency where he didn't had a luck launching the product. So he brought me on board to kind of QA his application
Hmm.
to see where the bugs are. So long story short, I was just a QA reporter, and then based on that, my findings, I made some suggestions. Client was feeling comfortable with it. So the project was already established,
Okay.
and it was at the stage where they wanted to go live, but it was extremely buggy,
But it
and they
was
didn't
built
go.
on Bubble from the
It
scratch?
was.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
built on
built on
Bubble. Okay. Mhm. So you took the project that was built on Bubble and was buggy and actually rebuilt it, right? And
exactly. So the
okay.
entire project was rebuilt by our team because originally it was built on a template,
Mm-hmm.
and we may know that templates not always the best solution, so we had to
Yeah,
scrape a lot of those things and
yeah,
build
I
things from
seen that. Yeah,
scratch.
many. We, we should tell that because many clients they actually start with templates because templates seem similar to the thing that they want to achieve, but then
Mhm.
they end up into a thing that you cannot move forward, right? Because the template is, for me, the templates, most of the templates that are good for MVPs, for testing the hypothesis, not to building your own product.
Exactly. And the main reason why template is not always a good solution is because templates have been built from design and UI perspective, but not from the app performance and
Hmm.
optimization standpoint. So there are a lot of dead workflows behind the scene that is going to drive performance lower, right? And then also,
Hmm.
if you try to fix one thing, there are chances you might break five other things
Yeah.
that you have to go and keep spending more time. So in my experience, I only use template if it only needs to be modified 5 to 10%. So if template is meeting 90% of your requirement, then it makes sense. Anything less than that, it's better to build from scratch.
So you threw away the template and remade the app from scratch?
Exactly. So basically
Hmm.
we dissected this because we had some beta users back then. So we took a page, then we duplicated or we created a separate page on the side and then rebuild it on the side and slowly migrated the user to the new page. So
Okay.
it's not like we
Um,
threw away that app. We just migrated or transition user to the newer build that
so
we
it
were doing
was,
in
yeah,
the app.
so it was even harder because you needed to migrate the users. Okay. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Took us
Okay.
one
So
year to do that.
wow. So okay, so show us the editor. I can't wait. I can't wait
Yeah,
the editor and how it
definitely.
was actually built, right? To prove that you know. Oh, and the landing page and the front end was actually also built in Bubble because I often see that some of the projects are building the website on a different tool like Webflow, and the app is
Mhm.
in Bubble. I see that you have everything on Bubble, right?
Exactly. And the reason being, we wanted to have that easy transition for the users.
Hmm.
Um, the reason most of the time we build landing page outside the bubble is for SEO optimization. Not and Bubble is an app builder tool. It's not a website builder, right? So it's not going to be best with SEO ranking, and that's the only reason, right? So going back to the editor, so I'll start a specific feature, and then we can go from there. So let's just say if we go to this dashboard section. So if you go to the Bubble editor and let's pull up the dashboard, you'll see there's nothing, or most likely this is all you can see on the Bubble editor side of things, right? But of course, we use lots of elements in terms of groups that are, of course, going to be hidden. So we have built this pop-up walkthrough for the new users. So this allows like an app tour, app guide, where they can click through each section to get familiarized with the app itself. And then when we go into much detailed functionality of the application, such as its lead generating form. And let me just pull that up here. there's so many elements. I would love to use the inspector to see where we stand. All right, let's see. I'm just going to run as one of the users in the database. Go. Perfect. All right, so let's just take this as an example, the dashboard, which is going to be group internal. So let's see if we find. There it is. All right, so from the layout standpoint, as you can see, this is a responsive application. So if I take this on my responsive viewer, and then if I go and change the dimension, as you can see, the screens are going to get adjusted. In terms of the workflows, we use lots and lots of backend workflows. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So it is very heavy.
How do you manage, I mean, the workflows itself? I mean, you use colors, of course, but do you have some naming conventions or some comments or some folders, right? Okay, so folders, I see.
Yep, lots of folders. We have naming conventions, we have color coding, naming the folders, of course. We have built our internal, I'm happy to show that to you. So we have built an internal best practices when it comes to bubble naming convention. So we take an individuals, and then this is how we are usually naming the workflow itself. But most importantly, we have our color codes. What does blue means, red means, green means, and so on. And so that allows us to kind of stay aligned with the rest of it.
How many people were working on this app? Because you've been mentioning the team were working on the app. Yes. So how big was the team working on this app actually?
Yeah, so the current team size who is actively involved in this project is 12. So there are 12 people actively working every single day on this project. And it's not just a developer, but it's a combination of project manager, scrum master, QA lead, designers, developers. Yep. So that's the current team size that is involved on this project.
Yeah, that's really impressive. And can you also guide us with the automation part? I mean, are you using any external connectors to fire up those automations, or you're using Bubble itself? I mean, the Bubble is, you've mentioned that the Bubble is the core of the app, but how about some external integration?
Yeah, great question. So we have built our own plugins where it's needed. And of course, we're using AWS on some of the cloud functions that we're doing. There are a combination of Bubble's own backend structure, but also building our own custom functions on AWS that allowed us to host such as URLs, right? Or the embedding of the form. There's another tool that we recently built where you can connect domain names on the app itself, and you can purchase domain names. So that is hosted outside of Bubble under the AWS. So it's mainly going through our APIs. You'll see there's tons and tons of APIs. We, of course, have used Heroku for hosting certain, like a calendar page or the form hosting. Sometimes we're taking it to the Heroku. We have our Twilio, lead finders, AWS, as I was mentioning. So it's a combination of external and Bubble. So it's not just all Bubble.
Okay. And from the perspective of a client or an agency that would like to build a similar app, for sure, it's not the case of building it on the starter plan, right? For such big app and a big user base, you need to have an enterprise plan.
You do have to have an enterprise plan if you're building such a heavy application. That's without a doubt. You'll also know that from your workflow utilization. I mean, you won't be able to see on the dedicated plan we're on, but we were running into workflow utilization or accessing our limit every single day. We were on the growth plan, I believe. We started with growth and then we went to teams, and then
Okay.
teams
Mhm.
was just getting killed every single day. And then so later on, we had no other choice but to upgrade to the enterprise.
Okay. So can you share how many users are using the app actually? I mean, how big is the app that you needed to move to enterprise? Because this is super interesting for most of the people who are asking if Bubble can handle this.
Yeah. That's a very good question. And I wish there could be a simple answer as okay, if you have X amount of user, you need this plan, right? And that's not how Bubble works. Bubble will gauge your usage based on how many workflows that are being ran, right? It's basically how much load are you putting on their servers. And like, for example, this only has 300 users, but the amount of workflows we had to build this application is gigantic, right? It's enormous.
Yeah,
And so that's why we have to be on the enterprise plan, because there's so many workflows are running for automations, for calendars, for lead
yeah,
management, right? Where I have worked and built an application for one of the real estate companies where we had close to 86,000 users and we were on the Teams plan. And it worked perfectly fine because it basically was a lead management to just a simple data collection point.
hmm,
So it all depends on workflow that you're building, and of course the workflow optimization. This is where
yeah,
also the difference between pro bubble developer, certified bubble developer, and a junior bubble developer comes in place, because in software engineering there are millions of ways to do the same thing, right?
yeah. That's
It
true.
just the experience is what makes you the best developer.
But I think what's important for the people who are watching is that Bubble can handle a really, really huge app, and not that thing that, for example, you have the limits of 10,000 users and you cannot do more. You have the limits of, you know, 3 or 4 connections and you cannot do more. This is a really, really complex app handling a lot of use cases. I mean, yes, as you said, basically a HubSpot clone and even more. And it's working on production, handling users. And I think for the companies, for example, who are paying for a lot of SaaS software, for paying a lot of users internally, thousands of US dollars monthly for external licenses, it makes sense to rebuild the app on their own with Bubble, even on the enterprise plan, and it will be cheaper and more effective, right?
Absolutely, and I'll give you a perfect example for that. I was part of one of the project a few years ago, where they were basically building a clone of Salesforce with AI capability. So this is when I was first introduced to OpenAI, and this was almost 3.5 years ago. We were working on ChatGPT 2.5,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea was to build a clone of Salesforce with AI, and we did custom. We were basically building on full stack application where React was a front end, Node.js was on the back end, and it took a team 1 year to complete the proof of concept to later discover that what we built was obsolete at the end of the year,
Okay.
right?
After 1 year of building even a proof of concept, right? Mhm.
Exactly. And just because the nature of the full stack development, how slow it can move, right? And you need multiple team
Yeah,
members to put together the app. Now, then after the failure of that application, I was able to go and put together something relatively quickly in less than a week. And it blown the owner's mind. He was like, oh my God, we've been wasting our time for a year. And then we were successfully able to build that on Bubble, deployed. The project failed, but it was a testimony of itself.
yeah.
What's the difference between full stack and Bubble development?
Okay, so thank you for all that. And the end, could you give some advice to an aspiring no-code developers or the developers who would like to move into no-code space? One reason why they should be into no-code and why reason why they shouldn't?
Of course, that's a great question. So twofold, right? One is the developers, the traditional developer who wants to get into the no code. The simple piece of advice I can give is you have to unlearn everything you have learned so far to become a coder. And you have to remove a title from yourself that I'm a coder, because Coder cannot be the bubble developer. If you are a programmer, then you can absolutely be a bubble developer. So first you have to unlearn, you have to forget about coding, and you have to start thinking about programming, right? For non-developers who are not a technical folks who wants to be in bubble or who wants to become a bubble developer, they have to start thinking in logical steps. They have to start thinking, if this happened, then do that. And it's a step-by-step process. So think about workflows, right? And also for the non-technical founders, it's important that you understand where are your strengths, whether it's in front end or a back end. Now, I understand Bubble is a full stack development application, but there is a big distinction between those two roles. And you could be a full stack developer, but of course, you won't be able to master all the skills at once. So pick the battle, whether you want to focus on front or back end. And if you're going with front end, then I recommend getting into UI UX designing. That gives you a perspective: what is a minimum width, maximum width, the responsiveness of the elements, and how do you group things. And if you're a back end, then you want to get into the logical thinking and think about how you want to build a workflows that can deliver the functionality around it, right? So I hope this helps, but to learn Bubble, you have to unlearn everything else you have done if you're a software developer.